Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the patch 10.6 changes and breaking down how they will affect each champion's placement in the meta. So first up here for Anivia, ultimate chill duration is being increased from 2 seconds up to 3 seconds. So basically what this means is it gives you an extra second there to land that empowered E damage on the opponent, and it's a nice change for sure, nice quality of life change overall for Anivia. Is it going to move her up in the tier list though? Not really, she's still going to remain an A tier mid lane pick. Now for Soraka, they're finally putting some power back into support Soraka after pretty much gutting her a couple patches ago because of the top lane Soraka meta. So what they're doing in this coming patch, Q heal is being increased there 40 to 80 up to 50 to 90. Q move speed is being increased there from 10 to 20 up to 15 to 25%. So this change should at least make Soraka an A tier support again for patch 10.6. It's nothing crazy. She's not going to be an S tier support like she was a couple patches ago, but it is a change that is going to make her a little bit less terrible in 10.6. For Urgot here, we have a pretty small change overall. Q slow duration being increased there by 0.25 seconds, and then E stun duration also increased by 0.25 seconds. So a little bit of a buff here to Urgot's utility, buff to his CC in this coming patch. Overall though, like the previous couple of changes, pretty small for the most part, and it's not going to change the champion's placing in the meta. It's not going to change his spot on the tier list. Now, Kayn is getting another buff in this patch here. He got buffed last patch. The buff honestly didn't really do too much for him at all though, so they're buffing him again here in 10.6. His passive orb rate is being increased again in this patch, so it was increased last patch, also being increased here again in 10.6. I don't know. I don't feel like this change is really going to do too much for Kayn. I feel like he needs like some more impactful change to bring him back into the meta. We'll have to see like how much this passive orb rate is increased by. I'm not too sure exactly what the rate is being increased at for 10.6, but if it's a significant amount, he could actually become a pretty solid jungler. But if it's not, he's still going to remain an A tier jungler for 10.6. And then for Kindred, relatively small changes as well. 80 per level being increased there from 2.26 up to 2.5. W missing health restored increased from 32 to 100 up to 45 to 100. So a little bit of a buff there to Kindred sustain in the early game. Our heal is being increased more so at the later ranks only. So pretty negligible changes honestly for Kindred here in 10.6, and she will remain an A tier jungle pick. For Hecarim, ultimate fear duration is being increased based on the distance you travel. So it used to be 0.75 to 1.5. Now it's going to be 0.75 to 2 based on the distance that you end up having to use your ultimate. So I feel like this is a pretty negligible change again here. Like in certain situations, it's going to be nice if you get like a full range ultimate off, a max range ultimate off on the opponent. That extra 0.5 seconds might make a difference in certain situations, but overall, it's not going to make Hecarim an S tier jungler. He's going to remain an A tier jungle pick. So moving on to Xerath now, I think out of all the changes so far we've gone over, Xerath does have the most impactful ones. His W sweet spot damage there is being increased from 50% up to 66.7%. So 16.7% increase there on your W damage if you can hit that consistently, like if you can hit it on the sweet spot. So this is a nice buff here to good Xerath players that can constantly line up that W correctly, hit it right in the middle there. It's going to be a nice buff for those kind of players. Our damage is being increased there as well, more so at the later ranks. AP ratio is only being increased by 2%, so overall not a super impactful change. I think Xerath is like on the verge of being like an A tier pick right now though in 10.5, so I do think this change will be enough to at least make him an A tier mid lane pick now. Now for Draven, W move speed there being increased from 40 to 60% up to 50 to 70%. So this is a decent buff to Draven, honestly. It does increase his ability to chase down opponents. It increases his kiting potential a little bit for next patch there. So it's not the biggest change in the world by any means, but I do think it's going to be a pretty nice change for Draven. He's not going to bump up into S tier with this change or anything. He will remain a pretty solid A tier AD carry pick. A couple different changes to Morgana here. Move speed being increased by 5, E shield amount being increased by 20 at rank 1, so a pretty nice buff there to her early laning phase. W is now going to deal 150% damage to monsters, so Riot's back at it again in this patch, giving a couple different junglers or giving a couple different champions the ability to now jungle a little bit better, but honestly, not too sure how viable Morgana is going to be in the jungle here for 10.6, like a lot of these other champions that are getting buffed in the jungle as well. From what we've previously seen, none of the champions they've tried to make better in the jungle have actually been very good. So like the Zed, the Garen, the Gnar, the Darius, like none of these champions are very good right now in the jungle. So I'm not really expecting Morgana jungle to be any better for 10.6. 10.6. For Veigar, he's getting a buff to his Q, damage being increased there by 10 at all ranks. So for bot lane Veigar, for AD carry or AP carry Veigar, I should say, he's going to remain an A tier pick for this coming patch. I don't think this will be enough to like bump him up into S tier. For mid lane Veigar, he's like a pretty average pick at the moment right now. He's a much better pick for the lower elos. So I think this change, definitely a nice buff to like lower elo players. And I think Veigar's one of the better mid laners you can play with the glacial setup to climb out of the lower elo. So a nice little buff in this coming patch here. Nothing crazy, but he's going to be a pretty solid A tier pick for 10.6. And then moving on to a couple different champions getting buffed in the jungle now. We got Brand here, who's now going to deal 120% damage to monsters. I don't think Brand's actually terrible in the jungle at the moment. Like, you got your W, right, which is going to deal the AoE damage. You got your E, which is going to deal some AoE too. And then you got, of course, your passive here, which is getting buffed. So honestly, I don't think Brand's terrible in the jungle. He's probably going to be better than picks like the Zed, the Garen, the Darius, but I'm just not too sure as to where he's going to land on the tier list for 10.6. And then for Zyra here, plants are now going to deal 150% damage to monsters. So similar to Brand, I think that Zyra is not a terrible jungler, better than those other junglers that ended up getting buffed in previous patches for sure. And I think that in this coming patch here with the buff, she could actually be like a B tier jungle pick, but we will have to wait and see. Pretty decent changes here to the Zyra jungle though. And then for Shen jungle, his Q max damage to monsters is being increased from 75 to 175 up to 120 to 200. So a pretty substantial buff there to Shen's damage from his Q in the earlier ranks. Now for Teemo jungle, he's actually getting two different buffs, pretty nice ones as well. His Q blind duration is being increased by 100% versus monsters, and his E is now going to deal 150% damage to monsters. So you're going to stay pretty healthy in the jungle now with Teemo in this patch. Like, if you're able to just use your Q and kite out well when you're taking your single target camps, if you do like a red to blue to Grom clear, you're actually going to stay pretty healthy here in 10.6. So I think that Teemo jungle, like, I know there's this one Teemo one trick in the higher elos named Manko who has really good success with this pick, so we'll have to see how it goes here in 10.6. But with these changes, I think Teemo jungle might actually not be completely terrible in the coming patch. For Yorick, his Graves are going to now spawn on large monster deaths, and then his Ghouls are going to take 50% reduced damage from monsters. So I have no clue how Yorick's going to pan out with these changes. I don't think I've seen a single Yorick jungle. I don't think it could work out very well just because you got no gap closer in this champions kit. You got no sort of really long range CC that you can use to gank effectively. So I don't really think Yorick's going to be that great of a jungler, but we will have to wait and see. For Twisted Fate, they're putting his changes back in here for 10.6. They ended up scrapping them in 10.5, waiting for 10.6 to put them in. So they're back here, and his blue card AP ratio increased there from 0.5 up to 0.9. Red card AP ratio going from 0.5 up to 0.7. So definitely a big buff here to split push TF in 10.6. If you're somebody who likes to play macro, likes to play side lanes with your TF, then this is a really big buff for you. And once you get a couple core items on your TF, your blue card, like, you're just going to be able to demolish towers extremely quickly here in this coming patch. And then for Ryze, his mana regen is being increased from 0.8 to 0.1. W damage increased there from 80 to 160 up to 80 to 200. So honestly, I don't know what they need to do to Ryze. They need to do more than this though to make him a viable pick for solo queue. I know they don't want to give him a super big buff or anything, because if he's a decent pick in solo queue, he's an OP pick in pro play. He's just such a hard champion to balance for both pro and solo queue. So with these changes, not going to do too much. He will remain a C tier pick for solo queue. So moving on to 5 different champions getting nerfed now. First up is Aphelios. Severum lifesteal is being decreased there from 8 to 25% down to 3 to 20%. So a pretty big hit there to a sustain, especially in the early parts of the laning phase. Infernum damage to minions is being decreased from 45% down to 30%. And then the Chakram damage is being decreased from 30 to 173% down to 24 to 164%. So I think all these changes combined here, Aphelios is likely to drop down into B tier for 10.6. We will have to wait and see. He could remain like a very low A tier pick, but I do think that with all these changes here, he's now going to be one of the relatively weaker AD carries, and there's going to be a lot of other picks like the MF going to be super good in this next patch. You got the Caitlyn, you got the Senna, who's still going to be really good. I just think that Aphelios is going to be outclassed by a lot of other AD carries now in 10.6. So a couple different changes to Darius here. W bonus damage is being decreased there from 50 to 70% down to 40 to 60%. W mana cost being increased from 30 up to 40, and then his E mana cost is also being increased from 45 up to 60. So like Aphelios, this change in my opinion is not going to kill Darius, but it's going to be a change to where he could definitely drop down into A tier. He's either going to be a very low S tier pick now or a high A tier pick for this coming patch. Now for Senna, another AD carry getting nerfed. Her AD per soul is being lowered from 1 down to 0.75. Soul cooldown per champ is being increased there from 4 seconds up to 6, 5, and 4 seconds at level 1, 6, and 11. So considering how strong Senna is right now in this patch, she's one of the best AD carries at the moment, undoubtedly. She's got like a 55-56% win rate right now, and even though these changes are pretty impactful, I just don't think they're going to be quite enough to drop her out of S tier in 10.6. Now for Garen, he's getting two different pretty small changes for the most part. Magic resist per level is being lowered there from 1.25 down to 0.75. So in those AP matchups, this is going to hurt Garen quite a bit. Actually, that is a pretty significant decrease there in his magic resist, but in his AD matchups, not going to hurt him as all. So this one here is very matchup dependent. E crit scaling is being lowered there from 50% down to 33%. So if anything, this just means that the crit build isn't going to be as viable, like going for a static shiv or a PD second, not going to be as viable here for 10.6, but Garen's perfectly fine with going for Triforce into like Deadman's and Black Cleaver or something like that. So this change is not going to make him any weaker. He's still going to remain an S tier pick. And then lastly here for Shaco, his Arc Clone auto attack damage being lowered from 75% down to 60% of your total AD. So you can either go for AD or AP Shaco at the moment. Both are very viable on him. So like if anything, this would just mean that AD Shaco gets a little bit weaker. AP Shaco becomes a little bit stronger here for 10.6. Not really going to do anything for him though overall. He's still going to remain an S tier jungle pick. So probably the biggest change here in 10.6 is the change to teleport. The cooldown on it is being changed from 360 up to 420 earlier on in the game, but it's going to go all the way down to 240 later on in the game based on your champion level. So if you're playing a split push champion up in the top lane or just a split push champion in general, really nice buff here to your mid to late game in 10.6. It's also now going to give you 30 to 45% movement speed for 3 seconds based on level on arrival. I just feel like that's way too insane. I feel like they're gonna have to nerf that in some way, shape, or form, because I just think that TP meta is gonna come back here in this patch. Like, you're gonna see it on mid laners, you're gonna see it on top laners, you might even see it on AD carries. I can just imagine, like, say you're playing top lane Maokai, for example, you TP down bot lane, you just have that insane movement speed when you get there to just not even have to like flash W, you just run up to the opponent with that movement speed, W on top of them, lock them down. It's gonna take players a lot of time to adjust to this change because they're just not going to expect you to have that insane amount of movement speed coming towards you, and they're going to have to like back off a lot sooner. Like if they see a TP coming, they're not gonna be able to like stay around because of that insane movement speed. So this is definitely going to be pretty meta shifting in my opinion for the coming patch here, and we will have to see if it does end up getting hotfix nerfed. So it looks like they will be shipping the Death's Dance changes for this patch here. They've had this like on the PB for the past like 3 or 4 patches now, but it looks like finally in 10.6 it's gonna be coming. So cost is being increased there by 100, AD is being lowered by 30. It's now gonna have 30 armor and magic resist though, so it's gonna be, I guess, an AD like bruiser item for the coming patch here that you can buy to give you a little bit of armor, a little bit of magic resist, but also it's gonna still give you that AD. I don't think it's gonna be a super broken item. I know a lot of people are making it out to be like this insanely busted item here that's going to be taken on every champion, but I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be a pretty good item, but I don't think it's going to be like a must buy on every single champion. And then lastly here, thank God Riot is finally giving some more nerfs to the funnel strategy. This should just not be in the game. I'm tired of seeing Taric Master Yi and just having to use my dodge whenever I see that, because I've only won 1 game against this strategy. I've probably played against it about 10 or 15 times, only won once. Like, you just have such a low chance at winning against this strategy if it gets to like 20-25 minutes into the game. So it is getting a nerf here for the coming patch. Monster Hunter penalty is now gonna lower your minion XP by 50%. So if you're farming like waves with your Master Yi in this next patch here, you are going to be getting a lot less XP. Alright, so that's gonna be it, guys. That's gonna round out the video. Hopefully this does give you a pretty good idea of what the meta is gonna be looking like here for 10.6. I think the biggest change overall is gonna be to that teleport. I think the changes to champions for the most part, it's not gonna be super meta shifting. Definitely look out for the TP changes though. You're gonna see that on a lot of different champions now in the coming patch, and I do think it is gonna be one of the go-to summoner spells on most champions. So with that being said, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.